The Indianapolis Colts came out with a win over the Arizona Cardinals at Lucas Oil Stadium, and no player helped themselves more than Nick Cross. Has Cross solidified himself as the starter at safety? And who were the other studs and duds from Saturday night? Let's talk about it. Welcome to the Horseshoe Huddle Podcast presented by Indianapolis Colts on SI.com, part of the Fans First Sports Network. My name is Andrew Moore, and as always, I'm joined here by my partner in crime and fellow co-host of the Horseshoe Huddle Podcast, Drake Wally. First of all, guys, if you notice something's wrong with my right eye over here, got a scratch on it, so it's pretty swollen. No contact in, can hardly see out of the right side. But hey, we're gonna roll with it. This is gonna be like MJ's flu game of podcasts. I'm just kidding. But let's go, man. But Drake, we didn't get to see any starters outside of Juju Brents and Nick Cross on Saturday night. But honestly, Nick Cross needed that game, and he sure took advantage of the opportunities that were given to him and probably played his best performance potentially in a Colts uniform since he was drafted back in 2021. Or 2022, excuse me.
Yeah, no, and you talk about his very short career. You got to think about they trade up to get him. He isn't even ready to play hardly any snaps at all. Mostly special teams his rookie year. Then last year he was on such an incredibly short leash. But man, he looked like a guy that really wanted to show the coaching staff, and I'm sure he said sorry in his own way to Shane Steichen about the whole Josh Downs thing. Okay, I'm sure that's been handled. So I think he was just telling the coaching staff, like, look, I'm here to do everything possible to make you guys look good for trading up to get me, because I know it's just preseason football, but he played like a man on fire, like a guy who was really trying to impress people.
He really did. And I think that what he showed on Saturday night, yes, it was against backups. Yes, it was in the preseason, but that's the type of performance that you need to see out of Nick Cross once we get the regular season going. That type of performance and being that type of playmaker, that type of player for this defense is what is going to solidify him at that safety spot, not only for 2024, but for the future as well. Let's look at the chat here. Truett already getting us off to a hot start with the $2 super chat. Thank you so much, Truett, for all of your support. Truett says, Nick Cross want to make you jump. So Truett, big fan of what Nick Cross was able to do. Thank you so much again for your super chat. Really do appreciate it. The third host, Stats Matt, is here. Depth looked a little better in some areas Saturday, for sure. It definitely did. And we're going to talk about those depth pieces tonight. Blue Nation, what's up to you as well, brother? And then we've got Trade Day 23. What's up, guys? Land stock is up. Cross is up. Matt Gay stock is down right now. Yes. So we're going to talk about all three of those guys. All three of those guys are in our studs and duds. And of course, we're going to talk a big portion of tonight on Nick Cross. So as you guys keep coming in here, please be sure to go follow us on social media. So, go ahead and like us on Facebook, Horseshoe Huddle on there. I think we're close to like 14,000 followers or likes on Facebook. So keep that number trending up as Drake has got some technical difficulties that he's going to work through. But make sure you go and follow us on X at Colts_SI. And then finally, if you're here on YouTube, be sure to follow us and subscribe on YouTube. Hit that bell so you know when Drake and I go live every Monday and Thursday night, or like this week when we go live on a separate night, Wednesday, since the Colts do play the Bengals on Thursday night for their final preseason game. As Drake gets back and joining us, we will be going live on Wednesday night since the Colts are playing on Thursday. And then you also want to turn that bell on because our colleague Noah Jaber has his own podcast, the Shoehorn Podcast, that goes on the nights that Drake and I aren't potting. So this week for the Shoehorn Podcast, Tuesday and Friday night. So you'll want to make sure you turn the bell on so you get all of those notifications. And if you can't catch us live, we're on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you listen to podcasts, we're on there as well. So make sure you subscribe, give us a 5-star review so we can reach other Colts fans just like you. So Drake, let's dive right on into it, buddy. The Colts took down the Arizona Cardinals 21-13. And honestly, that's kind of what we saw all week, even in the joint practices. The Colts just overall a better team than the Arizona Cardinals, a step ahead of them really pretty much everywhere, outside of maybe the secondary struggles and the joint practices at times. The Indianapolis Colts were just a better, more well-rounded team than the Arizona Cardinals. And I think that they definitely showed that not only in the joint practices, but again on Saturday night. It just always felt to me like the Colts were the better team.
Yeah, and I also think that they're probably, I mean, it's too early on Jonathan Gannon, but I would dare say they're probably better coached. I mean, the Colts have a really good coaching unit, just everybody, especially Gus Bradley, defensive coordinator, is one of the most seasoned in the NFL. So I think that that's not surprising. I think that you also saw that the Colts probably have better depth than the Cardinals, because you were looking at, you know, the backups facing each other, and each level of the depth chart for the Colts were pretty much kind of going hand in hand in that game with the Cardinals too. And I thought that there were a lot of bright spots, you know, deeper on the roster for the Colts that are fighting for a spot right now, that are kind of on that so-called roster bubble that we talk about, which it's great for a team to have a roster bubble fight. It's not good for the players though, because it's like one of those guys is probably going to be cut when they have to trim down the roster to 53 guys.
Yeah, but I think if I'll play a little bit of devil as advocate here, though. Okay. Yeah, I think it could be good for the players in a sense, is that competition brings out the best in some of these guys. Perfect example of that. It wasn't even guys that played on Saturday, but look at the battle between Alec Pierce and Adonai Mitchell. I think the Colts drafting Adonai Mitchell and bringing him in here, Drake, and obviously I think we can't really fully judge this until the regular season, but I think it's up to Alec Pierce's game a little bit. We've seen him become a better player throughout training camp and a more consistent player as well. But I do understand what you're talking about, is that when this is all said and done, there are going to be players left on the outside looking in, and that is obviously very devastating for these players, no matter who is cut out there, whether it's on the Colts or on 53-man rosters all across the league. One guy that isn't going to be cut though, Drake, Nick Cross. Nick Cross really shined on Saturday night. Again, it was against the backups, so we do want to take this performance, you know, appropriately as far as expectations are concerned, because it's not like he went out there, faced the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes and absolutely lit it up. But in just a little bit over a quarter of play, Nick Cross had 5 tackles. He had a tackle for loss, and Drake, it just seemed like he I'm going to use that term that you love. He had a nose for the football. He was flying. Yes. He was flying all around the field. He was really wherever the football was, and whenever a play needed to be made, Nick Cross was just right there in the mix. I think another interesting aspect of this, Drake, he played mostly strong safety on Saturday night. It wasn't the free safety spot where the Colts have been trying to put him in there. It was a strong safety. Now, that's typically where Julian Blackmon plays. But if Nick Cross ends up playing better at strong safety, and you can still get the playmaking ability and high-level play out of Blackmon at free safety, we may see a switch there. And the primary spots may be Blackmon going back to free and Nick Cross going to staying a strong safety. But just give me your thoughts on what you saw from Nick Cross there on Saturday night, and the type of performance that or what he can do with this type of performance moving forward.
Yeah, since you went the route of talking about his actual, you know, accumulated stats, I'll talk about his PFF numbers, and they do tell a story, because this is actually including no snap minimums, okay? But that tells even more of a story about it. So Nick Cross, if we're talking about total defense, he was top 5 with 71.5. Run defense, he was number 2 with 70.1. Tackle grade, number 1. Coverage grade just outside of it at number 6, but a couple of the guys had 9 and 6 snaps. So my favorite play was when Nick Cross, I think it was Emmanuel DeMercado, I think that's who it is, for the Cardinals, or one of their depth running backs at the start of the game, was running right up the middle, and Nick Cross just absolutely stuffed him. I mean, walled him. Didn't lose any momentum. He just completely boom, put him flat on the ground, got up and slowly walked forward and just stared down the camera and then walked away. I just right there, Rick Venturi kept saying it on their broadcast. He kept saying, former coach goes, I'm really intrigued to see how long they're going to keep Cross out here. I think it's great. He's like, I think it's great that he's out there. And he was out there almost a half. Okay, the coaches were not messing around. And he looked, guess what, people, dominant against second and third stringers and beyond, because that's what you should get from a guy that you traded up to grab, okay? You weren't looking for him to go out there and catch an interception and take it back to the house. You just wanted him to be dominant. So that's what he was. So I think that you're looking at your starting strong safety, and they're at this point going to play Blackmon wherever the other one isn't, basically. Wherever Cross is more comfortable, they're just going to stick Blackmon on the other side.
And I think that what we can see, I want to give a shout out to Stats Matt because all off season Stats Matt has been talking about how he sees Cross as more of a strong safety, better in the box, really just kind of attacking there. And yes, we understand the argument, and I've made this argument multiple times that Julian Blackmon had his career season at strong safety. Why would you want to move away from that?
Yeah.
But I think what might be the saving grace in all of this, Drake, is that this offseason, no matter at strong or at free, Julian Blackmon, his level of play hasn't gone down. It's been at that same high level, no matter the safety position. So, because Julian Blackmon is playing at such a high level and he's producing at both safety spots, I really think that gives the Colts some leeway here. It gives the Colts some different options for where they could place Nick Cross. If Nick Cross is better, closer to the box in that strong safety role, really attacking closer to the line of scrimmage, and you're not going to lose, as Stats Matt chimes in, damn right. If you're not going to lose the playmaking ability and the high level play of Julian Blackmon back there as that free safety spot, then go for it. And that's not to say that they're locked into these spots. Like Julian Blackmon could only play free safety. Nick Cross can only play strong safety. I mean, if Gus Bradley has enough confidence that I think he definitely has enough confidence that Julian Blackmon can do this, but if he has enough confidence that Nick Cross can do this as well and play both positions, then you can kind of mix and match and kind of determine, if in this certain situation, we might need Julian in that spot at strong safety. But in this situation, Julian's probably, we'd like him better out there as a free safety and put Cross near the box. So you can kind of mix and match there in order to get the best combination possible. And that's something that has been said not only by Gus Bradley, but by Shane Steichen. It's been said by Ed Dodds that the Colts want to get the best combination of guys out there on the field. And whether that is Julian Blackmon at free instead of strong and have Cross at strong, then so be it. I think the Colts are taking all of these things into account. And I think we're seeing what's happening in real time is Nick Cross is proving to be just a little bit more comfortable, and his ability to make plays definitely goes up a little bit when he's at that strong safety position.
Yeah, and I know that 2022 isn't exactly a glamorous year. I think Julian Blackmon played free safety, actually, at least some of that season too. But he looked good, and he really wasn't in a very stable atmosphere, and he is now. So I think he can play free safety just fine. And I think that we've heard it all over X, we've heard it all over Colts media, that you can probably still get a pretty damn good duo out of those two if they're not playing their respective positions we thought they were going to. Because Nick Cross is big, strong, and incredibly athletic, which that really, honestly, people, fits more of a strong safety.
Yeah, and for a week where a lot of Colts fans were up in arms as Justin Simmons went and signed with the Falcons for a measly $8 million, this is the performance that Nick Cross needed. Not only, I think, for what the Colts are looking for, but for himself, because I think it's known that Nick Cross reads the negative stuff about him and sees what's out there, people commenting about him. So this is, I think, is a good boost for his confidence as well. But it's not over. Now he's got to continue to stack these performances. You want to see him do that same thing this week or tomorrow against the Cincinnati Bengals in their lone joint practice. And then on Thursday night, when the Colts starters are expected to play the first half, you want to see Nick Cross out there making plays just like he did on Saturday night. Now let's move to another area that was really on fire on Saturday night, and that's the running game, Drake. And it wasn't Jonathan Taylor. It was instead Tyler Goodson, Evan Hall, and your boy Xavier Scott. All of those guys absolutely tore it up on Saturday night. And as our own Jake Arthur wrote in his piece on horseshoehuddle.com, it's really what helped lead the Colts to victory on Saturday night. 166 yards on the ground for a 4.5 yards per carry average, and all 3 touchdowns for the Colts came on the ground. So you could really see the Colts dominating up front with that offensive line, especially in the interior. Shout out to Dalton Tucker. Shout out to Tanner Bortolini. Shout out to Matt Gonsalves, which I will talk about Matt Gonsalves just a little bit here later because it wasn't all good from the rookie. But those running backs certainly did some work there on Saturday night, Drake.
Yeah, and if you just talk about the individual stats, you got Hull with 4 carries for 26 yards on the ground. Tyler Goodson had 6 carries for 35 yards on the ground, and another score. He already had one, I think, against the Broncos. Of course, it was quarterback Jason Bean that had that had another score. But man, Xavier Scott, they really haven't done anything too much with him, even in the preseason. But when he was in Maine as a Black Bear, he was a receiver. I can't remember if he returned kicks, but he was a running back. You even had him as a quarterback a couple different plays. You got yourself a Swiss Army knife in this guy, and he's big, and he's a physical runner. So it was good to see him get some exposure. But, yeah, man, there was a lot of excellent elements to that ground game. I mean, he had a long of 14. Goodson had a long of 11. Hull with a long of 14. I mean, there was plenty of big runs in that game too. So credit to the offensive line as well, because you can't have an excellent ground game, especially as a unit with multiple guys, without excellent, blocking up front.
Yeah, and here's our stats, Matt, stat of the day. The top 3 rushers had 116 yards, or 116 of those 166 yards for a 5.8 yards per carry. So that kind of just shows you how Tyler Goodson, Evan Hull, and Xavier Scott were all really, really eating out there on Saturday night. So it's culture shock. Xavier Scott, holy LOL. So that's kind of what he showed in the second half there. And Drake, this kind of leads me to a bigger point that I want to make is this battle for running back 3 between Tyler Goodson and Evan Hull has been fantastic all throughout preseason, throughout training camp, with Trey Sermon sidelined with that hamstring injury. Tyler Goodson and Evan Hull were able to capture some of the second team reps this week in camp against the Cardinals. Both of them had some explosive plays in practice as well. So here's another situation where I think the competition is bringing out the best in these guys. Obviously, Tyler Goodson didn't end last season on a high note. Certainly a lot of people blamed him for that week 18 loss and not catching the football, even though in my opinion it was more on Gardner Minshew than anything else. Evan Hull had a lot of hype last year, was only able to play 1 or 2 plays, had a terrible knee injury that lost his rookie campaign. So these guys, both these guys are looking for redemption from what happened in 2023. And so far, it's been a really fun battle to watch. And if I had to make my picks today, I say both of those guys end up making the final 53-man roster, and the Colts end up keeping 4 running backs.
Yeah, and I've been really impressed by Tyler Goodson. And the reason that I've been really impressed by him is because you did have that absolutely crushing play that didn't go his way, whoever's fault it was, it doesn't matter. But, man, he's really shown out in the preseason. And I think that with Trey Sermon's injury, you've also had an opportunity to see Xavier Scott play. Okay, so there's been guys that have had to step into that void, because Sermon's going to have a role on this offense. So I think it's allowed potentially the coaching staff to, like you said, see, hey, Goodson and Hull can be on this roster with Sermon and Taylor. And there's just too much playmaking ability going on with those two to just leave one of those guys in the practice squad.
Yeah, I don't know if really either one of those guys, after what they've done this preseason, would make it to the practice squad. I think a team would probably snatch whichever one would be cut. They're probably snatched up in waivers post roster cut down day. Our own Noah Jabber saying Goodson is running back 3 and not sure it's close. That's a good prediction. They have been splitting reps throughout camp, so I love the bold declaration there from Noah. I could certainly see the argument for that. He's the one that's been in the games, at least getting the reps first before Evan Hull. In practice, it's been a little bit more split. So we'll kind of have to see once we get to the regular season how that ends up shaking out. Unboxing Bros 2 says, will Woods be our starting tight end? I don't think so. Jelani Woods at this point probably not going to be the starting tight end for the Indianapolis Colts unless he really starts to pick it up. Right now, it's Kylan Granson and Mo Alley Cox. Those two kind of have the stranglehold on the 2 tight end positions. And again, not even very close there. Just as Noah declares that Goodson, running back 3, not very close as well. But Drake, on Saturday night, we got to see the running back 3, the quarterback 3 battle, if you really want to call it a battle. I don't know if it's a battle because it seems like Sam Ellinger's probably got a stranglehold on it, but it was nice to see the backup quarterbacks, especially the Colts getting Jason Bean a lot of run, Keaton Slovis some run, because you don't really get to see those guys much in practice. But overall, each one of them made some really good plays. I mean, Sam Ehlinger, Slinging Sammy, continues to be Mr. August around these parts. Was fantastic. He made a highlight play that I think would make Caleb Williams blush. Kidding, but it was still a fantastic play out there where he shook off a defender and then found Juwan Winfrey down the field. Jason Bean again led the Colts in not only passing, but I guess he was a little bit short of Sam Ehlinger, ran for 21 yards and Bean only 14, but Bean got a touchdown on the ground as well. So Jason Bean made some plays, and then Keaton Slovis comes in, finishes it off, was very, very efficient and led the Colts to victory. So Drake, tell me what were some things that impressed you about any of these 3 quarterbacks that we saw on Saturday night?
So I think that when we'll go from back to front. So Slovis, I think that you've got some ability with arm strength there. I think that he's going to be an interesting addition if a team does take a chance on him. I think that there's more of a chance that he's going to go to the UFL as the 12th overall selection, just because I don't think that he's cut out yet for the NFL. I think that that's more of a roster cut candidate, So I think that when you talk about Sam Ehlinger, you've got your real solid veteran if you ever had to go to your quarterback 3. And I think that he also was running for his freaking life the whole time.
Shout out to Blake Freeland.
Man, and we'll get to Blake Freeland, man. You not now. I want to. I almost did. But Sam Ehlinger, he avoided pressure, he avoided tacklers. It looked like he was like dodging. It looked like he was just evading dodgeballs in the pocket. It was really unfortunate, but he did look good. As far as Jason Bean goes, I mean, what is there not to love? I mean, the thing about Bean is he's fumbled and he's thrown a pick in his 2 games. And he is that quarterback that if, let's just hypothetically say in an alternate universe, he had to start 17 games before Anthony Richardson could ever start 17 games, you would have almost, I think, like not Deshaun Kaiser. That's pretty bad. 12 touchdowns, 22 picks. But you'd have some turnovers going on because he's a real risk taker. But maybe he's a practice squad quarterback. I think he could give you some really excellent looks. Maybe he doesn't go to the UFL as the number 1 overall pick. But I think that all those guys showed a legitimate argument to be quarterback 3. Is it going to be anyone other than Sam Ehlinger? No. And it's because you want someone you know really well and that you know understands your offense if you ever have to dip into your 3rd quarterback.
Right. Stats Matt says that Sam has an innate ability to extend plays and stay on his feet and improvise. And the thing is, we've seen Sam from his very first season with the Colts. He's just continued to get better. Now, is it getting better to a starter level? I don't think so. But I think Sam Ehlinger, what I said when his ceiling would be coming into the league was a solid backup quarterback. And I think you're kind of seeing that happen right before our eyes. You're seeing Sam Ehlinger really develop into that, not a guy that's going to excel or lead you to the playoffs, but he could probably come in and win you a game here or there. And I think that's what you're looking for as a backup quarterback. See what Stats Matt also says you forgot Josh Sills. No, I didn't. Josh Sills isn't on the roster anymore, so we don't need to talk about him. We'll get to that at the end of the show. But Drake,
that's right.
I do like the points that you made there, and each one have their pros and cons. Obviously, I think what's going to be interesting because first of all, do the Colts keep 3 quarterbacks? That's the thing, especially with this new the new rule that the emergency 3rd quarterback doesn't have to be on the active roster; he can be on the practice squad. So that potentially opens up a roster spot if you need it. But the thing is, I don't know if Sam Ehlinger makes it to your practice squad. I think there's a chance Sam Ehlinger will get picked up again by another team. So are you willing to be okay with risking that and then potentially having Bean or Slovis on the practice squad to be that emergency 3rd quarterback? I think that's going to be a decision that Shane Steichen has to make. And then for the second point is you kind of talked about it with Slovis. potentially going to the UFL as he was the 12th overall pick. Jason Bean was the top pick in the UFL draft. So what if you're Jason Bean and the Colts cut you, would you rather end up being on the Colts practice squad, or do you want to go out there and play? Do you want to go to the UFL, be that number one pick? You're probably assured the starting role for your team. Do you think you can go out there, make some noise in the UFL, and then potentially get another shot in the NFL somewhere else? So that's going to be an interesting kind of debate internally. What is Jason Bean and Keaton Slovis? What do they want to do? Would they rather be on an NFL practice squad, or would they rather be the leading quarterback for a team in the UFL? That's obviously something that they're going to have to weigh. I think in the end, though, I'm probably leaning that the Colts don't cut Sam Ehlinger. They just like him too much. He's smart, good leader in the locker room, great teammate. He's just what embodies a Colt to them. So in my opinion, Sam Ehlinger probably stays on the roster and the Colts end up keeping 3 quarterbacks.
Yeah, and everybody loves the shiny toy, a guy that has all this ability like Jason Bean or an arm like Slovis. But look, when it comes to it, you got to ask yourself, if you had to, let's say it's week 18, your top quarterbacks are out, you get to choose between Jason Bean and Sam Ehlinger to lead your team to victory. Who are you honestly going to choose? You're not choosing Jason Bean. You're choosing Sam Ehlinger, and that's exactly what the Colts are going to do as well. I totally expect him to at least be a part of the roster in some way, shape, or form if they do so choose to keep 3.
Now let's talk about some more studs and duds from Saturday night's contest against the Arizona Cardinals. We already talked about Nick Cross, obviously a stud. Went out there, performed well for a little bit over a quarter, and really staked his claim, and I think solidified himself as a starting safety for the Colts. Drake, we got to talk about Adetomo Adebawore, though. Adebawore, his second consecutive game for the Colts where he just went out there and dominated on the defensive line. Our own Zach Hicks has a film piece out about Adebawore on horseshoehuddle.com. Make sure you go check that out. It's a really good piece doing a deep dive into what he did. And now the stats on here, Drake, don't really give it justice because he had 2 tackles, he had a sack, and a tackle for loss, 2 quarterback hits, but he was tough to block on Saturday. And not only as a pass rusher, pushing people back, getting around the guards to get to the quarterback, but in the run game as well. Adebawore seems like he is, outside of Raekwon Davis, who we haven't seen yet, Adebawore has been the best run tackle or the best run defender as far as the interior defensive lineman has gone. So it's good to see out of the former 4th round pick, who last year really didn't see much of a role with this Colts defense.
Yeah, and he had a rough season. I mean, by all accounts, he just did not find his footing. He was just all over the place. But look, last week, Adetomo Adebawore led the Colts in pressures with 4. This recent week, he led the Indianapolis Colts in pressures with 3. Okay, this is a guy who and me and Andrew have said this, he is so damn fast that once he gets past a lineman, your quarterback is going to be running for his life. I mean, he's that quick, and he plays on the interior, which means his path is even shorter to the quarterback. So I love what he's done more so though, man, in run defense, because I think that's what we all expected him to do, was be a pretty good pass rusher. But, man, he's been real solid in the run too, and I think you're going to see some more of him on Thursday. But, yeah, I think if anybody's stock is up, it's definitely Adetomo Adebawore's.
Yes. Yim asks, is Adebawore more of an edge or an interior? The Colts are playing Adebawore strictly in the interior. He's been getting those reps as the 3 technique. Likely will be the backup 3 technique to DeForest Buckner. I think that's where he's listed currently on the depth chart as well. And since Raekwon Davis is now back, Raekwon Davis kind of slots in as the backup nose tackle behind Stewart. Davis can play both spots, so I think you'll see Davis play some 3 technique, but Adebawore was that backup 3 technique behind DeForest Buckner. Isaiah Land, another defensive lineman, a pass rusher that was impressive again on Saturday night. I mean, you look at it and his stats again kind of sit there with Adebawore. He's a little bit better. 3 tackles, a sack, 2 tackles for a loss, 2 quarterback hits. A guy that's sneakily a stats mass is Isaiah Land's season. A guy that could make a sneaky claim to a roster spot, Drake, especially with Samson Ebukam tearing that Achilles. You have four edge rushers that are locks. Kwity Paye, Leatu Latu, Taekwon Lewis, and Dayo Adangbo. But in my opinion, the Colts typically, just looking in the history, they typically keep 5. That 5th one, in my opinion, that should be Isaiah Land if you're wanting to go off of what has been shown this preseason.
Yeah, and he had a couple things where he could probably pick up the consistency with his tackling in that game. But I will say, the pass rush was there, the pressure was there. Again, when you have a guy like Ebukam go down, it might require 2 pass rushers to fill the void. Especially you're going to obviously upgrade some to a new position since he's down. I think that gave Latu probably even more snaps than he was originally going to get. And that's also going to give guys like Isaiah Land a chance to shine and maybe even make the roster. So, yeah, I think that you've got yourself a guy who could probably fill in almost like a Taekwon Lewis at times. So is he going to be on that level? Probably not. But, so far he's looked really great, and he did get himself another sack in that game.
I know the Colts are very high on Isaiah Land's potential. So again, with how he's playing, wouldn't surprise me if he finds his way onto the 53-man roster when cutdowns are made early next week. We talked about Jason Bean going out there again, just being impressive, especially for a guy, an undrafted free agent. He's doing everything he can with those limited amount of reps that he's getting in practice. He's always one of the guys that actually stays after practice just to get in some extra reps because he doesn't get very many during the actual practice. He's working hard, and it's kind of showing on the field. Jason Bean, another really decent performance out of the undrafted rookie. Laquan Treadwell, Drake. Laquan Treadwell is a wide receiver that he's not going to make this roster. Just simply put, he's not going to make this roster. The Colts just have too many wide receivers. The top 6 are pretty much a lock at this point. But the former first-round pick, all he's done is produce and gone out there at the end of these preseason games and kind of shown that he still has some juice left. Led all of Colts receivers on Saturday night, 7 catches for 72 yards. He kind of showed why he was a first-round pick back those years ago. So while I don't think he's not probably going to make the Colts roster, there could be a team that takes a chance on him. If not, if the Colts can get him on the practice squad, I think that'd be a really good addition.
Yeah, and he's showing, like you said, he's showing some sparks of why he was a first-round selection. And I think that he also had a touchdown against the Broncos on a real awesome sky-high catch. You were just like, wow, okay, I see why teams were like, we got to take this guy back then. So, hey, look, if he does make the practice squad, though, that is a guy who will absolutely push the defensive backs to the limit. So.
Yeah. Definitely. Stats Matt playing a little devil's advocate. Doolin could be on the hot seat. Hasn't played a game and missed a couple weeks of practice now. And that's true. Doolin hasn't been out there recently, but if Ashton Doolin doesn't make the roster, again, I think it's a very slim chance because the Colts love Ashton Doolin, especially what he brings to special teams. If he doesn't, though, I don't know if it's still Laquan Treadwell. I think DJ Montgomery and Jawan Winfrey probably have better claims to that, because where do they help out the most? On special teams, exactly where Ashton Doolin does as well. So I think DJ Montgomery probably would be that 7th, then Jawan Winfrey, then you're probably looking at Laquan Treadwell. So he still has a ways to go. A couple more names here, or just one more name actually for our studs. That's Dalton Tucker. Dalton Tucker, the right guard for the Indianapolis Colts, staking his claim for the 53-man roster as well, especially with Josh Sills now waived injured today. I think the Colts could, in my opinion, I think they're going to keep 9. Obviously, you have your starters, but the final 4 for the depth pieces on the offensive line, Drake, it's going to be a combination of Blake Freeland, those 2 rookies, and Gonzalez and Bortolini. And then that last spot is, I think, up for grabs between Dalton Tucker, Danny Pinter is in the mix there, Arlington Hambright potentially. So there's definitely some guys that could be vying for that final spot. If the Colts do keep 10, then I think it's a different conversation, and Tucker's a definite 100% addition to this 53-man roster. But if it's only 9, I think Dalton Tucker is shown to be the best, probably one of the best, if not the best, backup deep or offensive lineman the Colts have right now.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, didn't he go to Marshall?
Yes.
Okay, so then him and Micah Abraham know each other real damn well, because they are were teammates. So, I mean, like that is just such a great story. And look, 72, count them, 72 offensive snaps. Okay. The Colts were like, we really want to see what we've got with this guy. And all he did was go out there on 39 pass blocking reps and absolutely shined in pass blocking. That's a guy that I think that you need to really consider signing. You need to consider keeping him on your team one way, shape, or form. He's got that dog mentality, and he kind of reminds me a little bit of Will Fries.
Yeah, that's a good comp, right? I think, and then you
better
think
pass blocker, maybe though.
Yeah, you think of how that the numbers game would shake up. You get two tackles in Freeland and Gonzalez. Gonzalez can also play inside. Bortolini can play center. He can play guard. Dalton Tucker can play guard. You have position versatility throughout. So that if the Colts keep those four, I think that's probably the most likely scenario that you are going to see. Now on to the duds, and I just talked about it. Blake Freeland. Another really bad game for Blake Freeland at that left tackle spot. The play strength just hasn't been there. Again, just getting bull rushed back into the quarterback, just consistently missing on the defensive linemen that are rushing. And I do know that the Colts have a lot of faith in Blake Freeland that he can reach his potential. If you want to ask me if Blake Freeland is going to be cut, no, Blake Freeland will not be cut. The Colts aren't going to cut a guy that played 700 plus snaps for them last year. Blake Freeland is making this roster, but at the same time, Drake, it hasn't been good. It really hasn't. And if this keeps up, you're not very comfortable with having Blake Freeland be that swing tackle. And the closer that I think Matt Gonzalez is to winning that battle.
Yeah, it's really interesting because Blake Freeland is a great run blocker. I mean, he's a really, really good run blocker, but man, he has just been atrocious stopping pass rushers in both games. He was actually worse in the Broncos game, but was still awful in this game. And it's like he just looks awkward in pass pro. He looks like he might even be he might not know, kind of like Bernard Ryman knows how to. He's trying to figure out how to shorten his arms. He's trying to kind of figure out his frame, because some of these quicker guys are just making him look bad. And he looks embarrassing against some of these guys. So I think that the last thing that you would ever want is I just don't think that the coaching staff would feel comfortable in their mind thinking Anthony Richardson and Ryman's out for one game with a tweaked, hamstring or something. Here's Freeland. Like that doesn't make me comfortable, and I don't even coach the team. So I think that he's got to step it up. He absolutely needs to step it up. Like you said, he's probably going to make the roster, but man, he might see himself continuing to fall on the depth chart if he doesn't step it up.
Yeah, I agree. Anthony Gould was another guy that didn't have the best performance on Saturday against the Cardinals. Had a catch and then a fumble that resulted in a turnover to the Arizona Cardinals. Didn't really produce much else on offense either. But again, I mean, I don't think that his standing with the team is in jeopardy. Gould has made plenty of plays throughout training camp. It was just a lapse of concentration. I think he was more focused on turning upfield than really making sure that football was secured before he fumbled it. So just a teaching moment for the rookie.
Yeah, and everybody's getting used to the new kickoff rules. I mean, he didn't do any of that in college, so he's getting used to that. But yeah, I think something else that Gould needs to realize is that he is smaller than he's ever been. Okay, I saw him get absolutely destroyed a couple of times. So he's got to be aware of that and try to potentially take a little bit less damage, or he might see himself cough up a few more balls in the regular season.
Right. Juju Brents was another guy that didn't have a very good game from the very jump. He got playing time on Saturday because he missed the first preseason game. The Colts wanted to get him some more snaps. First play of the game, pass interference on Juju Brents. Not a great look. And then Juju Brents has to leave the game because on a play he got hit. His face mask got hit into his nose, and he had to get stitches. He was kind of bleeding all over the place, so his night was done there. But while he was on the field, Drake, not great. And he already had a shaky week of practice against the Arizona Cardinals. So when you combine that with what happened on Saturday night, not the best week for Juju Brents. You kind of hope he rebounds this week against the Cincinnati Bengals. Otherwise, that question mark around Juju Brents in the secondary just kind of continues to get bigger and bigger.
Yeah, and then you'll start to hear people say, well, was it all these injuries? Was it only playing a hair over half of last season? I think that the potential is there. I think he's going to be fine. He was smiling when he was being interviewed after the game. I just think he's getting the preseason, cobwebs out. I think that he's going to be okay. But don't be, freaking out if he might be just a few steps behind and he's getting caught up on things.
Right. We'll run through these last three pretty quickly. Taven Bryan, no need to say anything else. Taven Bryan, just a dud. Matt Gonzalez, the rookie definitely had some teaching moments as well in pass protection. Didn't have his best game. He had to come out for an injury there for a little bit. Did come back into the game, but again, he's a rookie. There's going to be some teaching moments. I'm not overly worried about Matt Gonzalez from what we've seen in practice and camp. It's not like it's a play strength issue with Matt Gonzalez like it is with Blake Freeland, where he's just getting continually mauled over and over again. Matt Gonzalez looks like he is an NFL tackle. He's got the strength and the ability there. I think it's just cleaning up some technique issues and just kind of, again, getting used to the NFL game. Guy didn't play much last year. Remember, he was hurt, so he's still knocking off the rust as well. I think Gonzalez is going to be fine. And if I had to pick a winner of that swing tackle position, I think eventually it's going to be Matt Gonzalez.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, Gonzalez has the strength. He has more of just a natural look and feel when you watch tape of an NFL offensive lineman. So I think that absolutely he's going to be the long-term solution.
And then finally, Matt Gay. Not a great preseason for Matt Gay. 0 for 3 on kicks this preseason. Now
one for four.
One for 4. Okay.
Still
one for 4, but still not great. Not great. And I do understand that the 3 misses have been from deeper range. I think 2 of them were from 50 plus. The last one on Thursday was like a 43-yard field goal or a 44-yard field goal. Something that you would expect Matt Gay to hit for what the Colts are paying him and just his history as a kicker. I think he only missed 8 kicks total in the 3 seasons with the Rams. Missed them both, hooked both to the left. Now, could that be because there wasn't his original holder with Rigoberto Sanchez? Sanchez was not there on Saturday because his wife had a baby. So congrats to the Sanchez family. Fantastic news there. But Matt Gay, this isn't what you want to see out of your kicker who didn't end last season very, very confidently. I know he was dealing with some injuries, and those are no longer an issue. So you want to have your kicker kicking on all cylinders, literally, once the regular season gets going. And so far, Matt Gay hasn't shown that to be the case here in the first 2 Colts preseason games.
Yeah, and I think they were both missed pretty similarly. And you're looking at it, I think it's a little soon to worry too much, but, regardless of if it was Spencer Schrader or Rigoberto Sanchez as your holder, 1 for 4 in preseason games when there's not a lot of crowd noise, okay, and you're at home. He's in Lucas Oil Stadium missing these kicks, so you hope that gets cleaned up because they're going to need him, and maybe even as soon as week 1 against the Texans, which I absolutely foresee being a close contest.
Yeah, I do too. And so overall, a good performance out of the Colts on Saturday night. Thursday's contest will be the dress rehearsal for the regular season. The Colts starters are all expected to play the first half of the game there in Cincinnati. So you'll get to see Anthony Richardson in this offense, DeForest Buckner, Zaire Franklin, and this defense go to work. That's going to be fun to watch. So on Wednesday night, we'll make sure to get you all prepped, talk about what happened in the joint practices against the Bengals, and then get you prepped for that game. But Drake, let's talk next about some of these position battles. So a lot of them, nothing really changed with them since a lot of the starters didn't play against the Cardinals. They did have some joint practices moments that we kind of talked about last week. So we'll run through these pretty quickly. We'll just kind of touch on some of the positions that actually did play on Saturday. So wide receiver between Alec Pierce and Adonai Mitchell, neither one of them played, still about a 50-50 split. Tight end, Kylan Granson and Mo Alley-Cox, we kind of touched on this earlier. Those guys are your starters. Drew Ogletree, Jelani Woods, Will Mallory, they all suited up and played against the Arizona Cardinals on Saturday night. So in my opinion, that battle is pretty much wrapped up as well. It's Kylan Granson at the move tight end and Mo Alley-Cox as the inline guy.
Yeah, and hey, fans, Jelani Woods had a special teams tackle. Okay, more tackles than he had catches. I don't know why he's playing special teams, but when I saw Jelani Woods out there make a tackle, I was like, if they cut this roster down to 4 tight ends somehow, there's just no way he's making it. It's hard to admit. It's just like
it's going to be interesting with that tight end spot because they kept 5 last year. Do they keep 5 again this year? They're going to have to be some roster gymnastics because I just don't see you cutting Woods or Mallory and either one of those guys reaching the practice squad. Definitely not Woods. Woods would get snagged up immediately because of his potential. And Mallory has shown that I don't think you can sneak him out of the practice squad either. So if the Colts really do cut one of those guys, I think it's that just the writing is on the wall. They really don't think either one of those guys has a future with this team. Otherwise, you probably keep those guys around. Running back 2, it's still Trey Sermon. I know we talked about Tyler Goodson and Evan Hall, but Trey Sermon is the running back 2 for this team. The swing tackle position, though, Drake, swing tackle, Freeland, not that great. Matt Gonzalez definitely took his lumps as well. I still think it's Freeland by an edge, but Matt Gonzalez is right there. And the more Freeland struggles, the more opportunities Gonzalez is going to have to be the Colts swing tackle.
Yeah, and that's just how it's going to be with some of these position battles is that one guy is going to just kind of be not waiting per se, but one guy will have a little bit more of a bump up in momentum or stock, if you will, because of his competitor, having a bad game, kind of like Freeland and Gonzalez, that situation going on.
Yes. Leo spot, Taekwon Lewis and Latu did not play. You guys all know my feelings on that. I think Latu should be the starter. And then I think a kick returner and punt returner, Drake, I think we could probably call that battle as well. A kick returner, it's Dallas Flowers and Anthony Gould. And then at punt returner, it's Anthony Gould. I think those are going to be the guys that handle the return duties for the Colts as long as they're healthy.
Yeah, and that's okay because, Gould was a great punt returner in college, and then Dallas Flowers a couple of years ago was one of the premier kick returners in the NFL, so I think that's a nice duo to have.
Yeah, I do too. I think both of those guys are explosive. They have the speed. The Colts obviously still getting used to the new kickoff returns, but with how close they've been to breaking one just in these preseason games, would not surprise me if either one of those guys at some point this season takes one of those back to the house. Let's go over the Colts injury report. Some new names added to this list, some taken off of this list, which is good to see. Kind of touched on it earlier. Juju Brents left the game versus the Cardinals with a nose injury. His face mask got pushed back into the crown of his nose, or the bridge of his nose, I should say, required some stitches, was bleeding from his face, but he was upbeat after the game, talking at his locker, didn't think it was broken, said he could still breathe. So my guess would be he's probably going to just have a shield, which I think he still does. He has a visor there, and as long as it's not impacting his ability to run around, it doesn't seem like it's going to keep Juju Brents out. And Stats Matt did say we put him in our duds just because it wasn't the best performance, but I do want to highlight the Stats Matt again also said, if I can find it here, there it is. Juju had some good reps, though it seems like some of the film clips floating around out there, he looked good. And yeah, he wasn't every single play he was bad. There were just some that weren't up to par. I do think that my concern level for Juju Brents, though, isn't as high as where it is for some other areas of this Colts roster. But good to see. The main point is, Drake, I don't think this injury is too serious. Now, Jelani Woods left the game versus the Cardinals with a toe injury. Shane Steichen didn't elaborate on how serious it is. I think we'll get a better feel about that against the Cardinals. If it's not that serious and he's out there playing, great. If it is, we'll see if he actually does suit up. But for a guy that can't, if there's a guy on this roster that can't afford another injury, it's Jelani Woods.
Yeah, he needs to definitely be suiting up for the Cincinnati Bengals game. Every snap, every rep he can get is just one more opportunity to potentially make a roster spot.
Yes, very good point. This is the good news, though. Raekwon Davis is going to be making his Colts debut. He was removed from the active non-football illness list because of that high blood pressure that kept him out all of training camp. Was removed from that today. He will begin practicing tomorrow. Will he be full go and will he play against the Cincinnati Bengals? I think that's going to really depend on his conditioning. He has been staying in condition, like in football condition, even though he hasn't been out there practicing. missing. But so we'll have to see. But it's good. It definitely needed that Raekwon Davis return after we've seen some of the run defense in these preseason games from the interior defensive linemen for the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, I'm passed out of Tomo Adebaware, man. It's suspect. Eric Johnson and Taven Bryan, man. Boy, I think that the defensive coordinators are pretty excited that Raekwon Davis's blood pressure's at a good pace, man.
Yeah, and remember, we kind of talked about this a while ago, but Davis isn't just going to be a nose tackle, guys. He's going to be a guy that do not be surprised if you see Grover Stewart and Raekwon Davis beside each other, taking up some snaps to give DeForest Buckner some breaks. That's something that the Colts have been trying to do for years, is be able to give Buckner some breaks in the regular season so he's fresher and they can use him more once they get to the postseason. So I think Raekwon Davis is going to have a bigger impact and a bigger role on this team than people might realize. Some other injuries that we've kind of just to run through that are still out there. Josh Downs, obviously with the high ankle sprain, he was at joint practices on a scooter. When he needed to kind of move around, he was moving around on a scooter with that leg elevated. Otherwise, he was in a boot, just kind of standing and walking a few steps. No procedure needed, which is really good. So you hope he continues to heal. Trey Sermon's still out with that hamstring injury, as well as Ashton Dulin with a hamstring injury. You hope you get those guys back this week, especially Ashton Dulin, who we haven't seen much of. Titus Leo and Liam Anderson are still out with undisclosed injuries. Jannard Avery with a leg. And then today the Colts placed Ryan Cole, the center that they signed 12 days ago, on injured reserve. So Drake, out of all of those names there, I know we've talked about the importance of Josh Downs and Trey Sermon and everything, but are there any injuries on that list that you are either super worried about or that you think could have an underrated impact on this team, for this Colts team, if those injuries do linger?
I think that the two that stick out to me are, obviously Josh Downs. If his continue to linger, that's huge. But outside of that one, I think that Trey Sermon, you do want to have him as your RB2. I think he's the most experienced and probably fits that role the best. And then, of course, Ashton Dulin. We haven't seen him in so freaking long. I'm ready to see 16 suit up again.
Yeah, exactly. And I think when Ashton Dulin is out there and healthy, he provides a valuable element, because Ashton Dulin can play all three wide receiver positions. He's not just an X, he's not just a Z, he's not just a slot. You can, if injuries do occur, you can kind of place Ashton Dulin throughout the roster or throughout the offense. So like if Alec Pierce went down, or Michael Pittman went down, Ashton Dulin could step in there and really fill that role, especially while Josh Downs is still healing up from his high ankle sprain that you're hoping he returns to from week 1. But if that means staying out a couple of weeks means he'll be healthy for the rest of the season, I already said this a million times on the show, that's probably what you want. You're going to opt for that option rather than something that lingers like a high ankle sprain throughout the rest of the year. Drake, let's wrap up with the latest Colts news and rumors. I've got a couple of signings and a guy that no longer is on the roster. The Colts signed center Mike, and I'm going to butcher this last name, Mike Panasiuk. Panasiuk. I have no clue. Mike. We'll call him the center Mike. Center Mike. And linebacker Mike Smith Jr. So two Mikes. Center Mike is he actually is from Michigan State. Played 10 games with the St. Louis Battlehawks of the UFL and was named to the All UFL team last season. So definitely has showed at the UFL level that he's a pretty good offensive lineman. And then Mike Smith Jr., an undrafted free agent, played at Baylor last season and had 25 tackles. So in my opinion, center Mike and linebacker Mike, both preseason Mikes, and I don't think they're going to end up being on the final roster.
Yeah, and I think that the Mike, I think it might be Panasiuk. Who knows? Panasiuk. Regardless, Panasiuk maybe. But that I think that just stems from the Wesley French injury. I think that they're just trying to continue to make sure that they've got absolute like depth at that position. And of course, you're going to see a bunch of camp bodies in and out. Wait, what did stats Matt say?
That's all UFL center to you, Andrew.
Yeah.
Center Mike, all UFL center. And then if I said Mike Jones, I'm just, we'll blame it on the culture shock. It's Mike Smith Jr. Mike Smith Jr. is the linebacker they signed. If I said Mike Jones, I mean, maybe I should be fired from this. We'll blame it on the eye. But hey, listen, like I said, both Mikes probably not going to be on the Colts for very long because roster cuts come on the 27th of August. Then to make room to bring Raekwon Davis back and for the subsequent signings today, the Colts did waive injured guard Josh Sills, who, while he wasn't great in the preseason action, he was still battling for a roster spot. He had been the starting left guard with the second team offensive line, Drake. But again, Josh Sills going down, Wesley French going down, it just opens up some opportunities for like a Dalton Tucker, who's been phenomenal this preseason, for a Danny Pinter, this is going into what would be his 5th season with the Indianapolis Colts. If he's to make the 53-man roster, I think that's going to be your big battle for that final offensive line spot, because I think Freeland, Gonzalez, and Bortolini, they're solidified in those roles. Those guys are going to be on the 53-man roster. If it's only 9 offensive linemen the Colts are going to keep, it's going to come down to Tucker and Pinter, where Tucker has performed better, but Pinter has the experience. So which one is more important? And if it was me, I know what I'm getting out of Danny Pinter. Dalton Tucker just looks like he has a far better upside than what Danny Pinter can bring to this team. I would go Tucker.
Yeah, and this is going to be a lot of different positions. The Colts are going to have to make this exact type of decision. But yeah, if you have to choose between the experience and the upside, I think if you're going that deep into your guards, give me the upside in that case, because you've also seen what Dalton Tucker can offer, and I think he's a better pass blocking guard than Danny Pinter is.
Yeah, I would agree. So one more joint practice for the Indianapolis Colts against the Cincinnati Bengals, and that will be tomorrow in Cincinnati. And then Thursday night will be the game. Colts take on the Bengals to finish off their preseason slate. So this is, like I said earlier, this is dress rehearsal time. This is where you're going to see the Colts offense out there for the majority of the time. You'll see the starters, Jonathan Taylor, Anthony Richardson, Michael Pittman, all those guys on offense playing at least close to the end of the first half, probably the entire first half as well with the starting defense. On Amazon, we get the Amazon crew of Kirk Herbstreit and Al Michaels. Going to be a fun one, I think, and a much more a better predictor, I think, of what you're going to see out of the regular season from this Colts team.
Yeah, and people, the regular season is officially less than now 3 weeks away. So, I mean, it's fast approaching, and I'm pumped for this Bengals game because you are going to see a full scoop of the first teamers, what the offense can do, what's the defense going to do. It's going to be intriguing to see a half of what this Colts team is all about. And like you said, it kind of gives you a little bit of a sneak peek into the regular season.
Exactly. So that's our show for tonight, guys. Really appreciate everybody tuning in to talk about this Colts Cardinals game and what's next for the Indianapolis Colts. Truett was our lone super chat of the evening. So shout out to Truett, one of the GOATs. Thank you so much to him and everybody else that joined us tonight. If you haven't done so, please go follow us on all of our socials, like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook, follow at Colts on _SI on X, and subscribe to the Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel. Hit that bell so you know when Drake and I go live every Monday and Thursday night, or for special changes to our schedule, like this week. Since the Colts play on Thursday night, we're not going live on Thursday. We go live on Wednesday night. Wednesday night at 7 p.m. We'll get you all prepared for the Colts to take on the Cincinnati Bengals. Plus, we'll tell you everything that we heard of that happened at that joint practice that's happening tomorrow between the Colts and Bengals. So Wednesday, 7 p.m. is where you can find us. You want to turn that bell on as well for the Shoehorn podcast that will be this week on Tuesday and Friday, but normally every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday night on the nights that Drake and I do not join you on the channel. And if you can't catch us live or on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you listen to podcasts, we're on there as well. So make sure you subscribe and give us a 5-star review. We haven't gotten very many reviews lately. So even if you've already given us a rating, log into your Spotify, log into your Apple Podcasts, give us a review. I don't think I've seen one from Patrick, and I know Patrick's would be an absolute menace of a review. So please go do it, Patrick, and everyone else. Go give us a review on Apple Podcasts. It helps us reach other Colts fans just like you. Drake, I know you've been writing away as always. Tell the people what they need to go check out. Some good stuff on horseshoehuddle.com.
So I did my 3 good, 3 bad from the Colts preseason victory. I did 3 Colts with rising stock, a potential unexpected Colts cut candidate, and then, of course, the top 5 graded PFF candidates on offense and defense.
Plenty to go check out from Drake on horseshoehuddle.com. Myself wrote about who else? Nick Cross and his performance from Saturday night, what he had to say about what he saw from his performance, what Shane Steichen had to say about what he saw from Nick Cross, and how all of this kind of comes together for the future for Nick Cross and the Colts team at safety. So check that out. Also put a piece on what the return of Raekwon Davis means to this Colts defensive line. So give that a read, and everything else on horseshoehuddle.com. Go follow Drake at DWalsterDrake. You can follow me at Andrew Moore NFL, and we'll be back Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, to break down everything that we saw at Colts Bengals joint practice and discuss what to watch for when the Colts take on the Bengals in Cincinnati Thursday night. So everybody enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll see you right back here on Wednesday night. Take it easy.